You may have seen that Pivot came out. So this is something that is really important for us to provide our students. I'm not sure how it's been provided in the past, but we have these chapter officer training manuals, which are very dense and very hard to digest. It's essentially a textbook all on its own, and it's very overwhelming. So we've tasked the district officers to break this down into the essentials for you. With that being said, this has to be broken up into different parts, because if we were to throw everything at you, probably not the best way to go about it. And a lot of your onboarding, a lot of the stuff you may have known from previous presidencies, or if you're returning, may be thrown out the window because of COVID. So we are doing our best to incorporate what we do know with COVID. There's still a lot of gray areas because we're waiting for some more definite answers from our insurance providers, and we are also working with TBS. So just know that this is part 1. There's part 2 and 3 coming up as well. We're working with the other district officers to provide training for your other chapter officers, and that this is not just a one-time thing. We're looking into providing some training in November and February as well. So with all that being said, do we have all the answers for you, and can we answer all of your questions? No. We will do our best. We'll provide you with the essentials and what we know and what we have. But the goal of this is to expose you to what we have so far, to start that dialogue, for you to ask questions and to figure out what you need specifically for your chapter, for your band program. Okay? So that's all you have. That's all I have. If you have questions, you can always email me after this session. But without further delay, I'll go ahead and hand the virtual mic over to our presenters.
All right, thanks, Bon. Do I have access to screen share at this point? One sec. All right. Good to go? Okay. So here we go. All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Jack Gornick. I am the NCD president for this year, and as soon as I can hit the present button, we'll get right into this. I'm from Alpha Zeta at Indiana University, and I'm joined here by...
Good afternoon, brothers. My name is Tarshay Odom. I am the 2020-2021 SCD president. I am a brother of the Zeta Eta chapter at South Carolina State University.
All right. Okay, so for a brief overview of what we're going to talk about today, we're going to start with talking about some constitutional responsibilities for you as president, as in like the things that you are explicitly stated you have to do. And then we're going to move into some more intangible things that, while not necessarily in your constitution or in your explicit responsibilities, are things that you still have to do to be a good president. Then sharing some of the resources that are available to you, and then just talking about summarizing this into a couple keys for being a good president. So starting out, the bare minimum. These are things that you are constitutionally required to do. And we'll start off with everybody's favorite thing, which is the paperwork. We all love the paperwork. But there are a couple things that you have to fill out throughout the year, and some that you've already done. So you have already had exposure to things like the chapter summary report, which you've all filled out at this point by June 1st. The chapter personnel report, which will come at the end of September, which goes into who all is in your chapter and also paying dues along with that. The fall activity report, December 1st. And that is a summary of what you've done up until this point of the year. Then the risk management policy form, which comes along with the orientation meeting and the MC registration, which has to come within 7 days of first degree. So you have a week after first degree to send that in. The initiate registration form, which is when your MCs become actual brothers, and you pay the initiate dues along with that within 30 days of third degree. Graduating seniors report at the end of each term, and the officer and chapter update after every election that you have. I know that's a decent amount and it's fairly dry, but it is things that just needs to happen for each chapter. So we have some sort of unification and regulation for how the National Council and National Headquarters know who's in your chapter and what's going on. Hopefully we'll get into some more exciting things later on, but we're just starting with the bare minimum here. Okay, now Tarshay going into some other responsibilities.
All right, the next thing is one thing, honestly, that as a chapter president last year, I was most scared of was presiding over meetings. And still to this day, as the SCD president, it kind of shakes me up a little bit. Chapter meetings is one thing. Also, your executive board meetings, and also creating an agenda. Um, which is one of the most important things in all aspects is creating an agenda. Going into a meeting without having a mapped out plan will be the worst thing you could ever do because it can cause chaos and your meetings be all over the place. So making sure that you have that agenda mapped out, and make sure that you also get it to your chapter before the meeting takes place so they know what they're already talking about and also can read over the previous minutes before. In our constitution, it states a whole outline for our meetings. We always open up with our opening ceremonies, reading of the previous minutes, reports done by the chapter officers, discussing unfinished or old business, then going into details of the new business for new plans that y'all have for the next couple of months. Also, reports from the different committees within your chapter, and then once that is all said and done, we go into our closing ceremonies.
All right.
And another big thing as a chapter president, you must have that communication with your sponsor and director of bands. This should always be an open communication consistently. As a chapter president, I had to learn to talk to my director of bands and my sponsor about at least every day of the week, just keeping them informed what's going on. And, if they have any questions, they should not hesitate to ask. They should always know what's going on within the chapter. You should, whenever they approach you, send your email, say, hey, what's going on? You should be able to answer that with a quick of a snap. Always, you can depend on your sponsor and director of bands for questions, answers, advice. Ask them how can we go about certain things, and they can help you. Communicating with your sponsor and director of bands is the best thing as a bro that I had to learn to do. So chapter president, you are that first line of defense between the chapter and those two positions as a sponsor and director of bands.
All right. Thanks, Tarshay. Okay, so those first three things are just the tangible responsibilities. But there's so much more on top of that actually you have to do as a president. And I hope all those things before are things that are fairly self-explanatory and things that you mostly should have known by now. But a lot of these things moving forward, they're a lot more subjective because there's so many different ways to be a good president. There's no one template for it. But there are things that good presidents do and that transcends the responsibilities that are explicitly stated. So the first thing that I want to talk about is being the ideal brother. As the president of your chapter, it is up to you to set the example, to set the tone for your chapter and for the year. If you want to make a change in the chapter, you need to live that. You need to live the values that you want to instill in your chapter. One example or two examples that I'm going to look at here are one, if let's say you want to cultivate brotherhood throughout the year. That's one of your main goals throughout the year. Okay, if you want people to be more compassionate, to take initiative, to spend time with each other, to connect with each other more, you need to live that. You need to be the one to take that initiative, to live that compassion. Because if you're not embodying that, well, the chapter's probably not going to either. But if you do, well, the chapter's most likely going to follow suit. Same thing with positivity. That's one thing that I bring up here because with all of the change and all the turmoil that we're facing this year, it's really easy to get bogged down to the negativity of everything that's going on in the world right now. So it's going to be more important now than ever for you to maintain that positive attitude, to show that things are going to be all right, to show that there is hope and that you can look at the good things. if you're not the one that's embodying that, chances are the rest of your chapter might not as well. But if you can show that this is what you want to instill in your chapter, brothers will probably follow in your lead, and that's how you get to a better chapter. Ooh, I skipped ahead a little bit. And one idea that I keep coming back to is leadership isn't about you, but it starts with you. So breaking that down first, leadership isn't about you. It's about the people that you lead, that the people that you serve. It's about the brothers in your chapter and about them serving the bands together. Okay, it isn't about you, but it starts with you. You are the one that sets the tone. You are the one that helps other people do what it is that they need to do. You're the ones that put them in a position to succeed. And all of this starts with you exemplifying what you want your other brothers to look like, how you want your brothers to behave. And a quote from Albert Einstein that kind of sums this up is, setting an example is not the main means of influencing others, it's the only means. It's the only way to get your brothers to live the values that you want them to live, is by showing it yourself. That's the only way that you're going to get forward with this. Moving on to Tarshay.
Setting expectations. This is one of the biggest things becoming a chapter president last year that I had to experience. I will say that honestly, when it came down to it, my expectations started the day I got elected. That next day, I had to go ahead and put my expectations I wanted for myself, and then for my chapter, then the officers and the committees as well. You can't just go in there free willing it. You have to have a vision. You have to have a plan. So the first question that you must ask yourself, and I did ask myself this, is what does it mean to be a president of this chapter? And honestly, I went back. I went to go talk to older brothers that were president of the chapter previously. I wanted to hear their visions. I wanted to hear what were their expectations of the chapter, the different officers that they had. So there's nothing wrong with going back and using that resource of your alumni or former presidents to find out information. The next thing is also ensuring that your chapter officers are doing their jobs. So I'm not telling you to sit over there and hoover over them every step they make, see what they're doing constantly, consistently, just watching over them. No, by that, you give them an assignment, you give them a duty. So your job is to delegate. As a president, your job is to delegate. Now, if you give them an assignment on Monday and you expect that assignment to be ready on Thursday, then on Wednesday, I may be checking in like, hey, are you ready for this on Thursday? You know it's due. And then they may say that, yeah, I got it. Cool. Long as you're staying on top of them. I'm not telling you to check on them every hour, every minute, every second of the day. That will get very aggravating. Also, the next thing is enforcing the rules and policies of the university and fraternity. Make sure that you understand the guidelines that your school has in place and also the fraternity. There's nothing wrong with making sure and actually questioning our brothers and find out, hey, you understand that such and such is due by such and such a time. So that means that y'all be ahead of the game, and when anything else is due, because I know for our school is when it's time for us to even to bring in new brothers, we have to turn in that paperwork at least a month in advance before we even start anything. So making sure that y'all know all them things, the guidelines that the university and the school and the fraternity has in place, it will work very well, and you will never be frustrated. You'll be on point at all times. I think we're going to a picture next, Jack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so one quote that kind of sums all this up is like, high achievement always takes place in the framework of high expectations. If you set a high bar for somebody, more often than not, they're going to hit it. If you set a low bar, okay, more often than not, they're going to hit that as well. If you set expectations for what it means to be a brother and what it means to be a good band member in your organization, the higher you place that expectation, the more, the better, the better that your organization is going to achieve, because it pushes people to be better. It doesn't let people slack and falter to lower expectations. It keeps them accountable and it keeps them pushing forward, which is huge. Okay.
All right. The next thing will be setting goals. Setting goals, falling in line, just like setting expectations. I'm very excited because honestly, this past month we had our national leadership conference, and we was reading the book, The Power of Positive Leadership, and in that book it was talking about setting goals. And John Gordon tells us that as a leader, we should carry a telescope and a microscope as we embark on this journey as a chapter president or a leader within our organization. Um, Reasons being, our long term is the whole vision that you have set for that entire year. So I'm using my long term as my telescope. I'm looking through my telescope to see that big picture, to see that big vision, that what is the biggest thing that we want to accomplish for the entire year. All right. So our medium term will be, how can we fulfill these goals that we have set within the next 2 to 3 months? So you can't just say that, all right, we got our big vision, we're going to go straight there. There's a lot of things that fall into play. There's things that may come in a way. There's stuff that may jump out in front of you that, hey, you may have to stop. All right, we got to handle this first before we get to that big picture. So that short term will be our microscope. It helps us to zoom in on the things we must do short term to realize that vision. So that big picture that you have set as a president, make sure that you keep on bringing that vision up to your chapter. Make sure that you remind your members, your brothers, each time possible about the big picture where y'all trying to go to. Because everyone sees that vision, everyone sees that big picture, everyone's gonna be focused on that big picture. Like I said, we always going to run into a crossroad where we have to, someone or something is going to jump in the way. As a leader, we have to make sure that we realize what that big picture is, tackle that current situation, and then move forward and move on from it. Don't let that problem, I guess what I'm trying to say, don't let that problem mess up your big vision, okay? Don't let that negativity, just stay positive as a leader, as a chapter president. I promise you, if you keep that positivity going, your chapter is going to fall in line with you.
All right. One thing to note is that all of these more intangible leadership traits that we're talking about, responsibilities, each one of these could be an hour-long workshop on its own. And we've had workshops on it in the past, setting expectations, creating a vision. These are in-depth, these are broad and in-depth topics. And right now we're doing our best for an overview of it and getting enough of it. But if you have more specific questions, feel free to just throw it in the chat or ask us later on after at the end where we have Q&A and discussion, because there's a lot to unpack in each of these things. But moving on, another thing that really sets effective leaders apart in this organization is their ability to build relationships. This is a brotherhood. We call it that for a reason. It's about building connections with people and caring about the people that you're around. It's about using these relationships to better the chapter as well. So first off, Tarshay already talked about it, but with your sponsor and DOB, this is a relationship that you have to have as a chapter president. But moving on, I think the most important, at least for me, is brothers within the chapter. Again, it's a brotherhood. You are not leading from above. You are leading as one of the brothers. You need to build connections with the brothers in your chapter, especially your exec board, because it's just the best way to embody servant leadership, which you need to do in a service organization. You need to have these relationships. moving forth, if you have any of these counterpart organizations on your campus, Tau Beta Sigma, Phi Mu Alpha, like SAI, like etc., like NBA, NAFME, any of these other organizations that if they're on your campus, either you, at the very least, you need to coexist with them. So you need to have some relationship there. At the very best, you're collaborating on things, and you're working with Tau Beta Sigma, with one of these other organizations to do joint events. But again, at the very least, you need to have some connection there so that you are operating well in the same space, and that's within the bands at your university. And the last two that we just want to talk about here briefly are the district council and the national council. I think I can speak for every district officer here when I say we want nothing more than to help you all succeed. We are put here, our literal job is to serve you and to help you out along your path. Feel free to contact us, talk to us. Like we are, that's exactly why we're here. It's to help you out. Don't be hesitant to reach out just because it's, oh, the district or, oh, the national council. Just talk to us. We're brothers just the same as you are. All right. And the lesson that we want to talk about is just a couple other topics that we aren't going as in depth on as the others, but things that are still pretty important to note, and are also in the chapter president handbook as well. You have to look out for the best interest of your chapter. That's pretty obvious, but fight for your chapter, work for your chapter, serve for your chapter. You also got to represent your chapter. This could be as explicit as being the delegate at a convention or a district event, but it's also you are in large part the face that is put on to the chapter in a professional sense. So you're the points through which your relationship with the Department of Bands will go through, and that's important. If you need to be the one to uphold that professionalism. And finally, talking about, at the end of the year, you do have to hold elections and officer transition. And one of the biggest things about this too, it's not just holding elections. It's, you are responsible not only for your year, but you're responsible for setting up the year that follows for success. The president that comes after you, well, some of that falls on you. Don't leave them out to dry. And again, officer transition, this is another thing. This is an entire workshop. There's so many resources on this too on the national website that we'll go through, but this is invaluable. Like, you need to be the one to set a strong foundation for your next officers. For those of you who have had strong outgoing presidents, you know the importance of that. People who have not so effective officer transition from their previous presidents, you know the importance of it probably even more. Like, don't leave your successor out to dry. Okay. So now we're going to move on to just talking about some of the resources that are available here to help you out. And where we wanted to start was just talking about some things that go on within your district that you can talk about. And the specifics of this vary from district to district, but there are a lot of commonalities. First thing being the district websites. Each district has a website, and there are resources on there. There's links and resources. Perhaps there's even, I don't know, there's perhaps a Google Drive full of past workshops or anything. Like, it's a good place to start. There should be answers to some of your questions on there. The social media accounts of your chapter or your district, just subscribe to those, subscribe to any email chains, just know what's going on. That's the first step to doing that. There will often be stuff posted, for instance, links or knowledge about events like this, like workshops like this. Then also talk about just different communication channels, whether it's if your district has a Slack or a Facebook group for presidents, whatever it may be. Like, feel free to utilize those as well, to just to talk with people and to help each other out this year. And finally, district events. Like, most district events exist to help you on your path, whether it be a membership education retreat gearing towards how you help recruit and educate your brothers, or a leadership conference, or convention. There's a lot of workshops at convention, and any other workshops or activities that your district holds in between. Attend these. And considering you guys are all already here, I'm assuming you do this a decent amount anyway, but don't be afraid to take more advantage of these. Next, what we want to do is just go through some of the things that are on the website, and I'll share my screen and we'll go to the website itself. But a couple things, there's the officer training manuals on there, which like Bong said, are pretty dense, but there is a lot of good information within them. There is an officer's checklist as well, and then everything that's on KKSI TV, which is the national YouTube page. There are walkthrough videos for all of the forms. There are past workshops that have been done, and there are VPSA chats as well, which Bong has uploaded a lot of them, which have a lot of good content. So we'll go up here to the website. On this homepage, you got the OMRS, which I'm sure you all are fairly familiar with at this point, considering I know you've all submitted the chapter summary report. And we'll go first to right down here. There's a hot link to KKSI TV, and we'll just go briefly through some of this. There are videos that go all the way back, as soon as this loads, to like 2010. And some of the ones that I just wanted to point out here, there are these roadside assistance videos, which are for the road to wisdom. So talking about it's just assistance for the road to wisdom. There are also sample lessons for that as well. And moving up, the other one that I really want to point out here are the walkthrough videos. So it shows you how to fill out these forms in the OMRS. So the graduating senior report and officer update, all through initiate registration, which I don't know why Bong let me be on YouTube. That doesn't work well. But there are a lot of other videos here in between that you can all check out, including one just recently from 5 days ago. So they're doing that. And then over here on the resources page, we're going to go down into the officer training and resources. This is where the rest of most of the stuff is. On this first panel, you have the officer transition guidelines, which has I think it's like a 7-page document that details what a good officer transition looks like. So I'm not going to click on that now, but just keep that in mind for later on in the year. And then I'll show briefly like the chapter office manuals. So there are, there are 8 different offices that have training manuals for them. Like Bong said, they are dense. This is like a 100-page document, but there is a lot of good information in here, including a lot of stuff that we've already talked about. You can go more in depth on characteristics of leadership, or look more into how to run a meeting, or any of that. There are also 46 pages of appendices. Check those out. They might be interested to you. Okay. So that covers that. That's the biggest part of the website that we just wanted to cover briefly. Okay. Moving on to the greatest resource, people. Tushar, you want to talk about people a little bit?
Well, yeah, let's talk about these people. The greatest resources of people that we can use, of course, is our district council. Like Jack said, come and talk. We're not here. We're not going to bite you. We're not going to run you off. I promise you, we're just as human as you are. We're going through basically some of the same things you are. We're just in a position. It's just a title. So your district council, your national council, they're honestly, they're really open to conversation. Bong, Jessica, Mikey, even Marco, whenever you just shoot them an email, they'll shoot you one back. I promise you. If you have a question, if you're going the right way about it, they will answer all your questions. Even the national headquarters, always reach out. TJ definitely responds back. Aaron responds back whenever you do need them. I promise you guys, using these people will, in a way that you need questions answered, they will be there for you. Other chapter presidents, there's nothing wrong with reaching out to your fellow brothers that's going through the same thing that you are going through right now. It's nothing like that. Also, alumni, like I told you already, previous chapter presidents, when I became president, I reached out to them, find out and asked questions like, you was here before, how can you help me out? Once again, we back to our director of events and sponsors, and then also your chapter and your executive board, those brothers that are there with you currently, those brothers that are serving with you, ask them for help. There's nothing wrong with it.
Oh, absolutely. That's underlined and italicized for a reason. You have an exec board for a reason, and you were elected to lead your chapter. Keep them involved. Ask, utilize them. Lean on them. Like, there's a reason why they're there. Okay. So we're gonna conclude with just a couple of things to keep in mind. What Tarsha and I came to think about is like five keys to being a good president. So starting off,
Will be with me. Be authentic. Let your personality show as a leader. For those that do know me, for those that probably that don't know me, I've always I'm a very in here, I'm happy, giddy, all open and wild. But honestly, I'm a very shy person. Honestly, I don't like speaking in front of people. But at the same time, I like to stay positive at all times. I like to be real. If there's a situation going on, I'm not gonna let that burden me down. I'm keep looking towards the positive at the situation. So you have to be real. You have to be yourself. Don't be fake. You cannot be a fake. Oh my God, your chapter will read you. They will let you know if you're being a fake person. So be you. Be real. Be upfront in all times. Okay, that's basically all I can say. As a as a chapter president before, like I said, I told my chapter I'm gonna be as blunt with you as possible, but I'm gonna do my job. So be you. That's the best way I can explain that one. And number two will be something I also had to learn because I am definitely am a person that likes to do it all myself. If it's not getting done the way I want it to get done, if it's not moving at a pace that I want it to move, I will do it myself. But I had to learn to utilize those brothers beside me. I had to also utilize to actually reach out and like, hey, this is your job. I'm gonna let you do your job. I'm not gonna do your job for you. So we cannot we can't do it all ourselves because you're gonna burn out. You're gonna get frustrated. You're gonna get tired, and you're gonna want to move on. You're not gonna want to be bothered. So, brother presidents, use your chapter, use your brothers as much as possible to help you get through anything that you're going through. Number three.
absolutely. Number three is something that I'm sure all of you already do. I'm sure, like, considering that you're all here, you all care. You all care about your brothers, your work, and the bands that you serve, and you need to. And it's fairly self-explanatory, but you have to be willing to work hard for your group, for your organization, for your brothers. And it's not enough just to care though. People around you need to know that you care. Your brothers need to know that you care about making this chapter the best that it can be, and serving the bands to make them the best that they can be. Again, this is about servant leadership. This is a service organization. You need to be there to serve, and that often comes in the form of showing that you care. This is a brotherhood. You need to build those connections. You need to work with the people around you. Like, I can't sum it up more than just saying it's a brotherhood and it's a service organization. You need to embody that. And when you're in doubt, Tarshay.
When in doubt, return to the ritual. I think the most one I always use is I go back to that third and I'd be like, oh my God, those 5 stations. Just think about everything. Those 5 stations can help you. Look at it away as a president and look at your chapter like embody all of it. And when I say embody all of it, go back. If you if you just remember during that time and everything that you learned at that moment, you will be like, wow, use this in everyday life, not just as a chapter president, in everyday life that you go through, in your class, at your job, with your family, like use it because it will get you through anything. Um, I promise you, brother presidents, if you have that vision, have that goal, have that mindset that I want to be that top chapter, I want to make my chapter the best chapter there is in KKSI. You go back to your rituals and just think about everything that you went through and just just imagine how peaceful it would be for you. And then last but not least, you can't think about yourself.
Mhm. So number five, along with number two, I think for me, at least what I've seen in my time here, are the two biggest downfalls of ineffective presidents. When people, one, try to do it all themselves, and with number five, when they don't let go of ego or insecurity. This is one that I've seen on every single level of this organization. You need to be confident in who you are, and you need to be selfless with it. Insecurity is one of the biggest hallmarks, or letting insecurity drive you is one of the biggest hallmarks of an ineffective president. And I bring that up because it's okay. It's okay to be insecure because like you're never gonna have all of the answers. And like Tarshay brought up in number one, you're human. Let that show. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Being human doesn't make you any less of a brother or a leader. It makes you a better leader to show that you're human. But if you put up this facade of I'm trying to be perfect, or I think I am perfect, or I can't show that I'm human here, that's when you're going to start to fail. Because that's when you're going to start to let other things, other flaws get at you. It's if you really do care about the work of your brothers or your brothers and the work and the bands that you serve, you'll know that you want to do what's best. You should know, or you should want to do what's best for the fraternity, for the chapter, for the bands. And sometimes if you don't include these other people because of maybe insecurities, I don't want to show that I'm wrong. I don't want to show that I don't have all the answers. I don't want to show that I made a mistake. Other people can help you not do that. Other people can help you, make you whole, and make these decisions easier. Like, just I don't think I can sum up being a president more than just be confident in who you are, use the people around you, and be selfless. Serve the people around you, and be confident that if you make a mistake, it's okay. We're human. Let that show. It's a brotherhood for a reason, and you just got to be confident that it's okay to show that you're human. Believe in yourself, believe in the brothers around you, and believe that when you do make a mistake, people aren't going to look negatively on you for it. If you can keep that in mind, I think, or if you can keep all five of these things in mind, I have no doubt that any of you can be phenomenal presidents, honestly. And with that, we are going to open up for any questions or discussion. But before we do that, we just wanted to say thanks for all you showing up here, and also just send our contact information your way. Because just like Bong said, like we too are available to talk through anything. And if you have any questions about this, just let us know. All right, I'll leave this on for a few more seconds. I can also throw it in the chat. But after that, we'll open up to any questions or discussion that anybody has.
Yeah, so thank you both so very much for taking the time to put this together and break this down for all of us. For all of our attendees, in the registration form, there's a part where we had asked just to submit questions. So now would be a great time to submit or to ask your questions. If you're uncomfortable, use the chat, or I'll just kind of start reading through the list. And again, I'll preface, we don't have all the answers, at least not yet. We're still figuring out a lot of different things, but we do at least have resources. And some of the questions you asked have actually brought to light things that we need to prioritize as well. So these questions are great. Please ask. Okay, so I'll start to pick one while you all are thinking. So one of the questions we have here has to deal with DOB sponsor relations. I think we all know that we should have a communicative and open and a trustworthy relationship. But at the end of the day, if you're really unsure what to do, if that's something that makes you uncomfortable or something that you feel isn't a fruitful conversation, please reach out so that we can get you in touch with our Vice President for Professional Relations, Tony Falcone. He has been a great resource for us, even as a national council, to work with other directors and other sponsors because he's had so much experience, not only as a sponsor, but also as a governor. So if you have very specific things that you want me to confide in somebody who has that experience, please reach out. I already have the email of the person who requested this information. So again, that's a resources that I'll connect you with. But if there's anybody else, please reach out. All right, other questions? Okay, let me pull up another one here. All right, so how do we keep chapters united and excited while online? Thoughts to our DPs or from our DPs?
Well, um, one thing that far as I know my chapter is doing on during this time, these Zoom chats, they work, but honestly, we all know that we need that in-person interaction. So to keeping your brothers motivated during this time, honestly, I my best solution personally is make sure still whatever y'all have wanted to do for this upcoming year, still try your best way to do it at the most. Even for us right now, we're not having no in-person marching band practice just yet. But however, we're thinking about far as brothers, what can we do to get more students to attend our school? Right now, we're coming up with recruiting videos. So we're making commercials. As a chapter, we're doing commercials right now. So what is our way to aim to keep those brothers motivated? Is like participate in a commercial, make it your way, make it funny, interact with one another. Some of us are kind of central location around each other right now, so meeting in person may not be as hard, but keep the fun. Make everything still fun, but remember that we are still a business. This is a business organization. So my best my best solution is to that just keep them involved. Let them know that hey, we still can do certain things to keep the chapter going. There's no reason why the chapter should be all discombobulated because of COVID and all this uncertainty. So just keep it positive. Have fun, find some things to do, Zoom, PlayStation video games, have a tournament with one another. Call of Duty, Dungeon and Dragons. I don't know. It's all certain things we could do to just have fun. Make it entertaining as much as possible.
Yeah, appreciate that. Jack, did you have anything to add? If not, I can.
I mean, Tarshay said the biggest thing, which was just keeping people involved. And I think one way to go about that too is just delegate, spread the work, spread the love, like keep people involved in different tasks. Like we've mentioned so many times before today, like as president, like you shouldn't be doing everything. And this is a time where that's even more important. Like find ways to spread the work and to help people involved by giving them things to do. The other thing that I wanted to touch on briefly is just prioritize what it is that you have to do. So if there are things that aren't necessarily as engaging typically, and also maybe not as necessary, perhaps you can put those to the wayside a little bit and focus on the things that are crucial and important. One thing that I've noticed, because in all the classes that I've taken online so far, I know that I zone out pretty quickly when I'm on a long Zoom call, and so keep things moving. Don't get bogged down in little details or unimportant things. Keep things in priority, and that should help people stay involved, or at least not get disengaged.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. And I'll just quickly piggyback off of that, just kind of wrap things up here and transition to the next question, is essentially at the end of the day, if people aren't going to be interested, they're not going to be interested. But one thing that you can help is that how can you make the meeting also be about them? So you all came to this meeting because you had some interest in this meeting. You had something that you wanted to gain from this. You had questions you wanted answered. So how can you prioritize those aspects for your chapter in your chapter meetings and in whatever essential activities you do online? And at the end of the day, there are certain things that we can do over email so that people don't have to consistently just sit on these long meetings. And I really think we're all musicians. You can figure out creative ways in which to make this more engaging. Right? If we're talking about a chapter meeting, if we're talking about business stuff, there's ways that you can incorporate some creativity into this, right? Or let's say I've seen some chapters even incorporate mindfulness or musical activities into their Zoom meetings, but they're doing it in a very different way. They're throwing out what a meeting might look like or have looked like in the past to prioritize the mental health and the engagement of the brothers. And then they're like, all right, so we've finished 30 minutes, 45 minutes of this. All right, so the next few minutes or 15 minutes that we have, we'll just make sure that we have, make sure that everyone's on the same page. And the rest of the stuff you can do over email. If you don't have to meet, don't force people to meet, because that will burn people out very quickly, especially when there's so much uncertainty, okay? So this next question here from Robert is, you talked about dropping requirements for the semester in the pivot packet, correct? What about attendance at Zoom meetings? So that's gonna be in your realm because it's gonna be based on your attendance, right? Whatever your policies are on attendance as a chapter, you need to look at that. If that's something that you as a chapter and your sponsor want to maybe forego or maybe bypass through a vote, then you need to decide on that together. But at the end of the day, you have to, if it's an official meeting, you have to meet quorum. And look at the national constitution about what a quorum, what that means, and make sure that one, it matches your chapter, because you don't want any funky numbers. But just make sure that you meet quorum. And if people aren't able to meet, if they're unsure, I beg you, give people that grace and time to not have to come to the meeting. I think that we need to show up first and lead with heart first and say that, all right, I'm going to prioritize your health and safety first. And it may seem that they're disengaged. Maybe they just need a moment. Maybe they just need some time to readjust, because things are hard. So look at your chapter constitution, talk with your sponsor and saying, what does this look like? What is quorum? And make that very clear to people. Right? Do you have bylaws in there that say if you meet more than 2 meetings consecutively, that's an issue? Look at that. Maybe it's if you miss every other meeting, whatever it is, just be very clear with it and define it for all your brothers. Okay. With situations on campus changing constantly due to COVID, how should we go about setting medium and long-term goals? Cool. Do I have permission to be honest with everybody? Okay, if not, mute me. When it comes to goal setting and planning on all that, you can control what you can control. You cannot control other things in the university, the band level. There are things that you need to control. Focus on that. So what I would do is I would map it out and say, when does this need to be done? How long does it take for you to get done? And who plays a vital part in this process? But to me, I wouldn't focus so much. You have to have that vision of what you want to accomplish, but be flexible with those goals that, like, here's what it looks like right now, but that can totally change. But what I think is most important right now is making sure that you have the first 30 days, and then your 60-day mark, and then your 90-day mark. Because I promise you, and I was telling this to the district presidents, that throughout the school year, things are going to change. Your priorities and your roles and responsibilities as a chapter president are going to alter and change. From August to the end of October, it's going to look differently than from November to the end of January. And then from February to May, it's going to look differently. You have different priorities. So don't get so bogged down on like, this is what I planned and it must be this way. No, plan it out so you have some clarity, but be flexible in how you want to get there. Right? Anything to add, Tarshay or Jack?
I think so. I think your long-term goals are going to stay fairly constant because those, at least the longest term goals, are going to be those of we want to serve the bands the best that we can. We want to survive and recruit the best that we can into the next year if we're a small chapter. And we want to cultivate brotherhood, musicianship, whatever. I think it's more of the shorter term goals that are going to be the ones that change, as in the like, how do we actually go about doing that, and what are the activities that we're going to have to support that. So if we're talking about, for instance, recruitment, if your chapter is not going to be or not going to be able to recruit in person, then okay, now we need to shift towards for these individual recruitment events. What are we going to be doing instead? What are we going to be doing in an online format versus what are we going to be doing in what we would have done in person? So I think that overall vision stays the same, but it's the means through which we get there is what is changing.
Great. Heidi did that again.
So I think just really focusing what Bunk said on those 30 days out.
Yeah. Yeah, just make it more manageable for you because you will drive yourself crazy trying to manage all aspects of chapter and goals and all things that you can't control. So Heidi, if that didn't answer your question, please, continue to ask if that didn't. But I'm going to go on to the next question here. How should we guide the rest of the executive board when they will have less responsibility? Any thoughts on that?
I think it's the same, actually. I think it just changes in maybe the consistency or the frequency of which you're doing things. So I think regardless of how much you're doing, you still have to set those expectations and you still need to hold people accountable towards them.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing that I have to say on that. Yeah.
I agree with you, Jack.
Yeah. So let me ask you all this, and something to think about. And we all have different history, culture within our chapter, traditions, and philosophies on this. So consider this just for food for thought. When it comes to a president, if let's say you get literally nothing else done besides paying your dues and reports and stuff like that, like all the essential stuff. But if you get nothing else done when it comes to your role as a president, if you can help your exec board, your officers, set their goals and achieve their highest priorities, and figure out what does that 30-day look like. If you help just each individual figure out their goals there and help them achieve that, would you consider that a success? Would you consider that progress? Again, people might disagree with that, and that's okay. But maybe that's something to consider when there's still so much unknown. As a role of president, is your job to do everything and to accept the fact that your exec board has less responsibilities, or does this mean how can we be creative in getting them more engaged, equipped, and empowered to do more for their positions? Right. So you're not going to get all the answers right away. It's going to take you to think about this. What does that look like for your band program? What is that going to look like on campus? And unpack this, because we are in a completely new realm of existing as chapters. So be creative, unpack that, continue to ask these questions, and maybe even have one-on-one sessions with your exec members and say, what do you want to achieve? How does it look differently now? Okay, let's see. What's the best way to go about a situation where officers aren't fully fulfilling their responsibilities, but also aren't asking for help or using their committees? Thoughts on that?
See, I didn't want the pettiness to come out. Personally, if I know that a person is not doing their job, that's my job then as a president to step in, to pull that person to a side, to have a nice discussion, to get an understanding like, hey, is everything all right? Can I get an understanding of why you're not completing this or why you're not asking for help? Because at times, some people find it hard to ask for help. And I am one of those persons at times. I find it very hard to ask for help. But it takes a person to actually have that conversation in that 4-letter word once again to talk to that person to get an understanding of what's going on, because there could be some personal things taking place in that person's life that we don't know nothing about, and they're not opening up to us. So as a person in a position within an organization, as a president at that, you have to take that person, pull that person to the side, have that one-on-ones, and get an understanding of what's going on. And if they're still not doing their job, then I think we all know what's the next step. I mean, if it's stated in your constitution and bylaws about how this person is not doing their job, then as a president, you got to do your job. Hit the road, Jack.
Great. Okay. Let's see. Next one here. Any questions that deals with ritual, that deals with membership, recruitment, growth in numbers per se? That would be covered more with the VPMs. We're currently working on a plan to basically just like this, but a series for our VPMs. And we're trying to really bring in resources, Jessica herself, and getting some clarity on that. So I will forego those questions for now. Just know that they will be addressed at a different point, okay? So the next question here I have when it comes to president is, let's see. Okay, questions about how to find due dates for any activity report, any reports, forms from the OMRS.
I'll take that. So I didn't show this when I screen shared the website, but there is a deadlines tab on the website, I believe under resources, where you can go and it lists everything that you need to do. There's also deadlines listed in the pivot guidelines. There's a table or a chart within there that says what you need to do and by when. So those are two ways to easily find that. Otherwise, if you have specific questions, just ask a district officer. We'll help you out.
Yeah, I mean, if you're keeping tabs of the social media as well, I mean, we'll probably be somewhat annoying about it, just saying, hey, here's what we're doing. So something that we're going to add this year as well is we're going to ask Aaron Moore, who does a lot of the back end work for headquarters with these forms. So we're going to ask him to come in twice a month in September to help you figure out how to fill out the chapter, the first report. So in addition to what Jack has said, if you go on the OMRS, there are the little links that you can click on at the bottom right. You click them and they pop out a window that says due by so-and-so, or how many days after so-and-so. So just, make sure that you save those websites, those resources, add them to your calendar. Quite honestly, just add them to your calendar, set deadlines for yourself. Go through those walkthrough videos on the YouTube channel, because they give you a good idea of what work goes into each of those reports. Some report you can knock out in 30 minutes, if not less. Some will take you a little bit more time because you have to collect information from various parties. So just go through those videos. You know that the first, it was a chapter summary, no, CPR, the chapter personnel report is due by the 30th. We suggest by the 15th, but the absolute deadline is the 30th, okay? So great question. So we'll wrap up with one last question here, and I'll make a couple of comments before we go to the last question. Is when it comes to questions about you as a person, when it comes to time management, goal setting, look, you have your district officers, you have me as well. Let us reach out to us. Let's schedule a one-on-one and let's coach you through this, because there's going to be some things that may be explained better on a one-on-one setting, specific to your goals and specific to your situations, than to give you some, blanket answer. So if you have questions and need more guidance on goal setting, on time management, on maybe how to avoid burnout, talk to us. Right? Because we've all been there, and we can share with you some of our insight and some of our resources. Okay, so the next question here, when it comes to, let's see. No, I won't pick that one. Getting the chapter to work cohesively, even digitally. Getting the chapter to work cohesively.
I think most of the time when you're talking about getting people to work together, getting your chapter to work together, once again, it starts with you and how you get your exec board to work together, or how you get your committee heads to work together. And if you can, if you delegate, spread the work towards your exec board, hopefully they should spread the work to their committees as well, which should keep people engaged. I know that's a idealistic thing, like it's not ideal, like this should happen, but I think the more that you do push to just spread work around, the more it should tend to keep people engaged and working together. But
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tarsha, any thoughts to that?
I guess personally, if you have that mindset and you have that drive within you to actually want to work, your chapter and your executive board is going to want to work. If you stay in contact with them and constantly talking to them, expressing your ideals and your visions and getting their ideas and getting their visions and working, molding them together, it's going to come together. Everyone's going to end up getting on that same page, and then everyone's going to want to start working. You can't be that nonchalant person. I understand what's going on in the world right now, but still, you cannot be that nonchalant person. You have to be that leader. You have to be that upfront person. Be like, hey y'all, let's go. We got stuff to do. We got to get going. You got to be that motivated. I don't care if you have only 30 minutes of sleep. You got to find that energy somewhere, because I promise you, they're gonna feed off you. They're gonna feed off your drive. They're gonna feed off your positivity. If you negative, they're gonna be negative. If you positive, they're gonna be positive. So to work together, you just have to make sure that you're talking to each and every last person on your executive board. And then, depending on how big your chapter is, I talk to everybody in my chapter, either on a everyday basis or every other day basis, just to make sure that everyone knows what's going on and understand like how we're going about doing what we got to get done.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, this is leadership growth, and even beyond that, it's personal growth. What I'll put out there for you to consider is your job to manage the participation and engagement level of each individual member of your chapter. If you fully and truly believe that, Godspeed. I mean, like truly, like that's great. I love that you would like to do that. But consider this: your job as president. Maybe leverage, get your exec board members bought in, get them to start to work on their goals and get them to have in a way where they can be their like maybe a sub president, like get them to get people to buy in as well. Because there's already so much on a plate for a chapter president. You're worrying about the little itty bitty things that may hurt your feelings, and that's valid. That's a valid experience. If someone is not feeling engaged and you notice it may hurt your feelings. That's okay. You're human. You're going to feel that. But at the end of the day, if your job is to move the needle on your goals, I think you really need to start with your exec board. Because if you can't get your exec board bought in and moving on things, then, I mean, you're spreading yourself too thin. Okay? All right, everybody. Thank you so much again for taking the time to join us today. This is just the first part of this training. This will continue. We have the next session, which will be over micro and macro planning. And then we'll wrap the chapter president up for this quarter with leadership traits and tools leading through tough times. This is a dialogue. I call it a presentation, a workshop, because that's what we're all used to, but this is a dialogue. So please think on this, digest this, unpack this, come back, ask other questions, help each other out, because we are only going to get through this together. You can't wait and sit by and wait for us to give you answers, because a lot of times we don't have the answers either. We're working through them just like everybody else. We don't have a playbook for this. Your district officers don't have a playbook for this. Come, show up, be a part of the dialogue so that we can work this out together. There's lots of people we see who love to complain on social media, to comment on things. That's great. Utilize that voice. But until you show up and help us come up with the solutions, sometimes it's you're not going to get to be a part of that dialogue if you're not willing to show up. And if you're not sure how to show up, reach out. Let us know. We'll figure out a way. This training right here is a result of students saying, we need training, we need onboarding. So we're making it happen. All right. So again, I'll send, once I get this video rendered and uploaded to the YouTube page, I'll send out the presentation slides, the video, and the registration for the next couple of sessions. Be on the lookout for anything else. Continue to have this conversation with us because we are here to help figure this out with you. All right? All right, have a great Sunday. Go wash your hands, talk. All right, bye y'all. Thank you.
Thanks everyone.